But we did an interesting. Van Nuys wanted to, to take a little orphan area, which they were successful doing. Actually, I discovered it. And I wrote emails to North Hollywood West, and then I said, hey, what's happening in Panorama City taking over this area? Bowman expressed interest in doing it. I stood up.
By the way, the tape is running. Go ahead. It's okay. Just so you know.
So I went to their neighborhood council, and here at their neighborhood council, I went to Van Nuys, where they had a agenda. I recommend that you do this because if our board decides to do it, hey, if you want, that's no problem. The community will go to the board within the community elections. So we all, Van Nuys, North Hollywood West, and Panorama City, we all talk to each other. Meanwhile, our legal entity files his side to this.
But you know what? It's a different, every situation is different. But I don't know if you're aware. Hi, Ann. How are you? Watch your step, dear. Come over and then I'll give you a hug. Okay. Sunland Tahunga had that little chink. No, Sun Valley area had this little chink that was going into Sunland Tahunga. Or it was a change in the city boundary that we had that was trying to get that way. That's what it was. They had a city boundary issue, and it was a piece in Tahunga. No, I'm not talking about our deal. I'm talking about a different situation where they had a little section that had to be redone between the two because it was in Sunland Tahunga, but it belonged to Sun Valley, the city boundary. So they would have to go through all the motions to try and little teensy slivers.
Actually, it's part of this. One of the things, the points I made in general is that at the peripheries, zip codes should not define community boundaries because they're made for the convenience of the post office. And typically in commercial areas, they allow a carrier route to go up one side of the street and down the other.
Where's Gracie?
So that doesn't make the boundary. That's the convenience of the post office. We have the same thing from north of Vista Middle School, from Clement Wash to Sepulveda. It's all in North Hills, even with the Panorama City down.
Likewise, Howard. Oh, yes.
Please, everybody. Gracie, you're next. Somebody paging Gracie. Paging Gracie. Where's Gracie? Maybe we can move this over.
You leaving? I'm out of here. I'll take your seat.
Just talk about the function of the past. We can talk about
So nobody trips on it.
I think that was these people probably doing their own video one.
All right, I know that we have a lot of questions and updates regarding Don. Okay, are we ready? Everybody get your coffee and cookies. We're ready. No cookies?
No cookies left.
They ate them. What are these two cookies doing? Okay. What's your
I'm assuming this
okay, we're gonna
speaker card situation.
No.
So raise your hand.
Right.
This is Gracie Liu, our general manager of Dunn. And we need, okay, applause. Gracie's going to give us an update, and then we have some very specific questions to ask her. So why don't you begin?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So happy new fiscal year, and yay! I hope for the majority of you, if not all of you, that your funding close ended up being much easier this year than it has been in the past. Okay, well, I'll take feedback on that. I think there's only one NC by the end of the fiscal year that didn't end up having the majority of their funds transferred to them before June 30th so that they could write out checks that they needed to write out. So what we're going to do is have a review, basically we're going to plan to hold a town hall the last Saturday of this month. And it's going to go through a bunch of stuff in the NC system, not only funding, but how the closeout went with funding, but also grievances. There's a few things in grievances that need to be sorted out before we can proceed with the implementation of the new grievance ordinance. And there's also stuff with elections that we want to finalize. There are 35 neighborhood councils that will be that voted to include online voting, and so we want to finalize how that's going to be implemented as well. So you'll be getting information. We're trying to finalize it before the newsletter goes out tomorrow. But if you save the last Saturday for us, we're going to try to find someplace central, maybe in the Hollywood area, to hold this kind of discussion on how to proceed with some of the NC policies and procedures in those regards. We have an issue right now in terms of funding you guys for this current fiscal year. If you ended up spending all your money and you need to have us replenish your funds, we have been in heavy negotiation with the controller's office. They want us to give them the final accounting of the neighborhood council end of fiscal year funds prior to them giving you the next bunch of money for this fiscal year. So we've been arguing that we shouldn't have to do that because the reconciliation for last fiscal year, actually for the whole city, is not due until later this month. And that by holding up the funds, they're holding up your ability to spend. And so my hope is that we will finalize this tomorrow as well so that we can transfer, because it still takes us a couple days to transfer the funds into your accounts. And we're ready to do that. And we're going to actually transfer the first quarter amount, the full, I think it's $9,250. So whatever the amount is, basically. It's going to be given to you on a quarterly basis. So we were able to get that sorted out with Ron prior to the new fiscal year. But as I mentioned, I need to try to get them to understand that we need to move that money now as opposed to wait for this reconciliation, which will likely take us, with the staffing that we have, a few days yet to sort out. So the other things I think that on the agenda, actually let me go back to some of the funding stuff. On Monday we're going to be going and responding to questions about an innovation fund grant application that was submitted by Studio City Neighborhood Council President John Walker for online submissions of funding documents, e-signatures, documents, making your lives easier. And so hopefully that will be approved. And if that is approved, then we'll be able to make the improvements to our QuickBase, which is our database system, and that would allow you to directly submit things online. We wouldn't need original copies anymore. You could actually scan us all your receipts. Yay! Thanks to Ron, who said that was cool. So you'll be able to do e-signatures on everything, so that you won't have to get people's signatures in order to finish your funding requests. I've actually asked city attorney, they seem to be open to it, to please allow the department to pilot e-signatures on contracts and leases as well. Yes, I know. So they're looking into that because, it takes a month just to get signatures. I know, it's like we're getting too high tech. Watch out. Our hope is that this will go through, be approved, and then that amount will also be approved by city council, and then we build this out hopefully this fiscal year, and as soon as we can, and you'll have that ability and save a lot of time for you guys. Another component of that would be to, instead of the monthly expenditure reports, to put everyone on QuickBooks. So yes, so if everybody has an account on QuickBooks, then it will literally be up-to-date information in terms of as soon as you put it in there, we're able to post it immediately. So that's again another innovation that we're looking at and requested as part of this application. So tied to that, the monthly profiles. So the monthly profiles that you're receiving should be going to your entire board. If your entire board is not getting it, that means that we don't have an accurate roster because we send it to your neighborhood council's address, the main address that we set up. So it's basically your neighborhood council at impowerlake.org. And then that's a pass-through address that we update any information that you provide to us on rosters. So if someone's not getting it on your board, please let us know. And also, if you have an email address that happens to be related to your board website address, please check that, because sometimes your board members don't open their emails or don't delete their emails, and their emails get full and it bounces back. So we'll try to notify you when we get those bounce backs, but that's sometimes an issue as well for us if they're not receiving stuff. And what is included are the case files that have been open and closed for that month, the previous month, and the ones that are currently open, so that you know if it's keeps month after month after month is sitting there. That's something that we need to address, or that your board needs to be aware of, and it's just the cases. So whatever has been open and closed does not, we sit there and decide it. It's just in our database what's showing as open, closed that month, as well as any open cases, no matter how old it is. Yes, so there's an issue that we found a glitch, where if we open a case and we don't put a name of a person, but we just put the neighborhood council in our case file, so it's not associated with a person's name, we realized after some folks have talked to us that it didn't show up in this profile, and that profile we fixed that for next month, but we put in search parameters to put together the profiles. So that search parameter was left out. So it should have not only if a board member contacts us, but also if it's just a general, we're working on something for Chatsworth Neighborhood Council, for instance, and we don't associate it with a board member, those should also be included in the profiles.
The way it shows up on the profile, you don't know what the issue is, and when the case is closed, you don't know how it was resolved or what was resolved. So there's, for the average board member who doesn't know that there's a question to begin with, and they get this profile, and I have no problem with it, except that for the average person, is the city that Chatsworth asked about?
Right.
Who's closing?
Well, the goal of the profile is for your board members to know that we've been working on stuff for you guys. And if they want specifics, they need to bring it, we're trying to get it out before your board meetings, that's the goal. So that if they have questions, they can, at the board meeting, say, hey, by the way, we saw this, what was this about? And ask the actual board members, because some of the cases are really super long in terms of emails going back and forth and how we track it. So for us to put all of the information on there in terms of what we did, how it was handled, that profile would be massive. So that's why we don't put all the details on there. But we want you guys to have the information so that you know if somebody contacted, particularly funding issues, because what we found is that some treasurers, if they get a funding request form from their board, they may not submit it right away. And then their board starts asking what's going on, and sometimes they're told that it's a department issue, but we actually haven't received it yet. So this is part of trying to get information to the entire board. So if you approve the funding thing and you don't see a case open for it, that's the time to ask your treasurer, hey, what happened to that funding thing we approved? Why isn't there a case open? You have a question?
I'm just supporting Judy in that you've just said the reason why this is not very valuable. It comes to us and says, a case has been opened, number 5739. So,
Right,
we
there should
need
be a title.
we need a subject so we know what it's about.
Right,
because
but
we
you should
don't
keep
like-
getting the title, right?
No, we just say it's been open. We
Okay.
don't know why or what.
So let me
And then
check
we
that.
say, it's been closed, and we don't know what happened. So we can't do what you just asked us to do, to say, hey, why haven't you submitted this NPG? Because it doesn't
Right.
say that that's what it was for.
So
You
let
couldn't
me
just show
double check. It should have the title in it. So if it's not having the title, then that was a mistake.
It's just like tech support. You know, we've looked at your case at 4755. How did we do? I don't know when it was. That was 3 weeks ago.
Right.
Tell me
No,
what
it
was.
should have the title on it, so I'll go back and double check that. The title is supposed to be descriptive enough so you know what is going on. So it should be like a request for lease renewal, and then whether it's been,
It only
resolved.
seems to happen when it got resolved.
Right,
It
right.
doesn't come out when it got set up.
Okay, so let me check that. Yeah, and again, it'll be very difficult to do the full case, because the case, but if you have the name, yes. And that's supposed to actually be in there, so my apologies that did not get in. It should be in there. So I'll talk to them, the IT folks about that.
And it's not just the monthly profile. I think what Bill's saying is that any communication about that case number should have that little summary of what the subject matter is, because it doesn't now. When it says it's resolved, or any time there's a communication, you need to
Right.
know what the subject matter is. And then just to clarify, am I getting from what you're saying that any time a document, a funding document is submitted, like say an NPG or a dispute about an erroneous charge, that a case number should be assigned?
Yes.
And we should be notified of it? And
Yes.
how quickly should that happen? Is there like a?
Yeah, so I've asked staff that they, within 24 to 40 hours, that they open that case file and it is sent to you. So when a case is opened, you should be getting a notification, if you were the person specifically assigned to that. So if you don't get that notification, you begin notification, and then when it's closed, you should be getting notification, we've closed your file, and how did we do in terms of helping you, so that we can, make updates and changes to our performance and our procedures to help you guys.
So after 12 days, I should file a case.
Yeah, if they're not giving you case numbers, if staff's not giving you case
I've got
numbers,
6 items with no case numbers after 12 days.
okay, so if that's the case, then is it, are they all funding related?
Those particular ones are, yes.
Okay, so I'll go back to funding and see what's going on. They should be assigning you a case within 1 to 2 business days.
And that's by reply email, not on some, there need to be a reply email, right?
Right. But even as soon as we open a case, you should be getting an email notification directly from QuickBase, from our database system that says we've opened a case, and here's a case number. So that's automatic. So that is not necessarily a reply back to what your email is.
Actually,
Yeah.
this revised one, we had a problem that we didn't get any information, revised documents that has, it says like,
The case name, right?
it
The
has,
title.
it has a title. It's a little sketchy, but it at least tells you.
Right.
Gives you a clue.
Right, no, so I've been asking staff to please, there, we do have a title protocol so that you know what it should be, either funding or field or whatever category it is, and then something really brief to at least let you know what we're doing, whether it's a funding request form or it's a Brown Act question answered or something like that, so that anyone looking at it go, oh, okay, there's something.
This is a revised one.
Right, can we move on to rollovers?
Sure. So, the rollover, that's part of the, Council File 15-0524. I've passed around, our department's response. They actually went out in a newsletter, not last week, because we didn't have a newsletter last week, but the week before. So this is the department response. We were not asked to respond to the rollover portion. COCLA is looking at that, and all we asked for was that if you guys are going to do a rollover, then please, understand that if there's significant tracking involved, that there's resources on the department side or any city department who would be handling this, so that needs to be taken into consideration. My understanding is that the new committee that will be looking at this matter will be looking at it in August. So I don't have any further information on funding rollover.
So why don't we move on to other,
Jill, while we're on the subject though, could I just make a suggestion for everyone? So since it's not gonna come to the city council committee until August, it sounds to me like those neighborhood councils, either themselves, who might not have spent every last penny, or who might wanna support other neighborhood councils who didn't, could agendize this for their July meeting and file a community impact statement on this council file number, which is on the bank agenda. And specifically point out on the issue of rollover, because it is in the motion. And during Council President Wesson's town hall sessions, he mentioned a $5,000 figure very frequently. Occasionally a $10,000 figure was mentioned, but it is, a one-time, 1 year. It's not going to be like the old days where it was 3 years, 50,000, up to 50,000, up to 100,000. So I think it's much more manageable when you have a one-time, 1 year with a cap of $5,000 to $10,000. That would be the first in, first out as far as the expenditure by a neighborhood council. So I'm just throwing that out while we're on the subject to encourage neighborhood councils to put this on their next board agenda and file a community impact
now
statement.
some councils have already, will have their July meeting, then some have already had the July meeting, so how can a council then have input if they don't have a meeting between, and some are dark in August, how can they communicate?
Special meeting.
I think, yeah, you have to do either a special meeting or the board members speak individually and just make public comment.
All right, that's good to know. Mary?
Gracie, some support to go back to city council in support of the rollover. I think if the neighborhood councils are allowed to do rollover, I think the money gets better spent, because I know like in our neighborhood council, I'm sure others, all of a sudden we see this money, how do we spend it now? And it may not be as wisely spent on issues for the community had we not been able to hold on to it, roll it over into some other little project. So I think it's to the advantage for city council to allow the neighborhood councils to roll it over instead of us just go, well, what kind of things can we buy here, buy there?
Right. No, I agree. I think that, in June, it looks like the NC's spent $1.5 million in 1 month. So, I do think that is something that should be looked at.
I want to move on to the status, the authority of neighborhood such as particularly C4C. Could you tell us what it is, what its purpose is? Is it connected to Dunn? Is it part of Dunn? So,
Sure. So Councils for Councils was a program that was started, I would say, 4 years ago. It started under Bong Wan, came with the previous general manager. And there were several folks from the west side areas of neighborhood councils, and they came in and suggested when the department had been cut and we couldn't support NCs as we could before, they said that there should be a mentor program and that they would like to partner to create one. So Councils for Councils was created. It is a partnership between neighbor councils who are interested in being, or actually neighbor council board members who are interested in, current and former board members who are interested in being mentors or teachers, I should say, because some of them were just subject matter experts, and so they would offer to train neighborhood councils on certain aspects such as planning and land use, websites, or other specialties. How Councils for Councils evolved is we did a recruitment. Initially, this was under Bong Wan, and we had about 12 members, I believe, at the initial meeting or the initial recruitment. They were trained by city attorneys, so they have an access to city attorneys. So that's part of the partnership, so that they could more swiftly assist neighborhood councils, so they wouldn't have to go through an NEA to ask a question about a legal issue. They could just go straight to city attorneys. So they were trained in Brown Act and you know all the stuff that neighborhood council folks are trained in, and then additional trainings in terms of conflicts. So that's how it originated. In the past, so there's a co-chair on the neighborhood council side, and that co-chair currently is Jay Handel, and then the chair before was Bong Wan Kim, and then I'm currently the other chair, having taken over after Bong Wan. So
is it funded by Dunn? Officially part of Dunn?
So it's they're volunteers, so they're not funded, they're not paid. These are volunteers. What we have put together is a standard operating procedure where how they are deployed. So this became an issue of contention, actually, as you might have heard several years ago, where the union was called in by some staff members who felt that these volunteers were taking over their positions. That was resolved after about a year of negotiations with the union. So our goal has been to try to do additional recruitment, because from that initial group that was part of C4C, we're probably down to about 3 or 4 who are pretty active, and the rest have either resigned or just haven't been called, because every one of the members have different skill sets, so they can only be sent in for certain things. So the goal was to try to recruit more folks this last fiscal year. We weren't able to accomplish that just because of staffing issues. So this fiscal year, we were looking to try to do another round of recruitment and do a more simplified version of the trainings that we did with the initial group. Because the initial group probably went through like a day's training in various subject matters, and we wanted to simplify it and open up Councils for Councils for not only mentoring, training, but just general volunteer assistant work with some of the NCs. How they're deployed is a neighborhood council, ideally, a neighborhood council would take board action to ask Councils for Councils to come in for a certain reason. We prefer that because if, sometimes when there's factions and boards, when somebody's asking for C4C, the other folks don't want C4C in, and, you know, it just becomes a really big mess. So that's the preferred method. Another way is that the department could send in C4C to do observation of a neighborhood council without the council having to take that action. That's usually if we couldn't send our staff there ourselves, we might ask C4C to step in to observe. In that situation, we would give neighborhood councils heads up that we're sending C4C in. The other way is similar to what you guys saw with the funding. For those who had monthly expenditure reports that were not up to date, we offered them prior to assigning Apple One temp staff in there. We said these Council for Council volunteers are willing to work with you to catch you up. And so you have this option to work with them. And a lot of neighborhood councils took that up. And I mean, I really want to appreciate Councils for Councils for assisting us in catching like over 50 neighborhood councils up with their monthly expenditure reports. Yes, so thank you very much. And that's, you know, majority was like Jay Handel and Terrence Gomes. I mean, they just went out there and just really assisted everybody. And they volunteered too for your last funding request form meetings, like right before the deadline. They volunteered along with Ivan Spiegel to be there to review your stuff so that if anything was wrong, you still had the weekend to correct it. So those are the ways that they've typically assisted neighborhood councils. I have heard, and I do know that some of them are being asked by actual board members or stakeholders to attend meetings, and in that case, they are not there as C4C members because we have not signed them in there. They have not been officially asked by the board to go in there. So they are in that capacity. They're there as individuals who are just interested, I guess, in helping. But we do have a pretty strict way of assigning folks in. And again, when we do that, we notify the NC and let them know that we're going to do that.
Once the C4C person comes, then what authority does he have?
So if we assign this Councils for Councils person in, they do the same thing that our staff does, which is they make recommendations. There's no authority to shut down meetings, to do anything that our staff typically wouldn't do. And we, you know, everything that we provide when we support neighborhood councils, our goal is to provide you the various options, work with you to figure out options, do the pros and cons, and then ultimately you guys decide what you want to do. And we go from there. So sometimes if you hear that, we'll say, well, we recommend if you didn't post properly that you cancel the meeting. We're not going to sit there and go, we're canceling your meeting. We just say, you might want to cancel the meeting because you'll likely get folks who come and do grievances if you don't. So that's part of like our analysis, and that's what we give you. And C4C folks should not be doing anything different.
I'd like to make a couple of requests of you.
Well, here, back there.
Number one request is the same thing you just told us, that C4C might come in under your authority, might come in because a stakeholder asked them to, whatever it may be, but make clear when they come in exactly what the status is, why they're there, what they're there about, and what they're saying is only a recommendation. I had an incident, as you know, this last month where a C4C member came in just before our meeting, said we had a Brown Act violation, and if we discussed the matter that was the subject of that Brown Act violation, he would have to cancel the meeting on the spot. Now, apparently he was there as an individual, not under the department. He didn't make that clear at all. He also even if he was there from the department, I found out later he could not have canceled the meeting. I went, couldn't do anything about it just before the meeting. I went home that night and stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning. I read the Brown Act. And I'll confess, I'm not a lawyer, but I did lobby in Sacramento for 17 years. I can read a law. And I read the act. Number one, what he said was a violation was not a violation. He was not inaccurate, he was dead wrong. Number two, if there are Brown Act violations, there are remedies that are specified in the Brown Act, and canceling a meeting is not one of them. Period. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I took it a step further. I spoke with the city attorney and verified that. I asked the city attorney, this is what the situation is, this is what I read, how do you read it? He read it the same way. I thought that was good verification, but I didn't think it was enough. I also spoke to an outside attorney who has no connection with the city, handed him the law, showed him the paragraph, asked him the same question. He said, you're absolutely right, that's how I read it. My second request is that the C4C people go through Brown Act training so they don't give out this erroneous information.
And the NEAs.
Ron, did you research the case law, by the way?
I wanted to also ask a question because I think it's relevant. Did your council request someone for C4C?
We did not.
Just walked in.
They didn't, no, I would say no, they didn't walk in. When I arrived to set up the room for the meeting, that person was waiting for me.
Are you an attorney, Mark?
Okay, let's continue. Yeah, you want to respond to that? I see you back there.
So, yeah, well, they did get Brown Act training, and I will follow up and see what happened, but again, they weren't there assigned by the department, and so I would have to figure out why exactly that was said, if they did say it, make corrections. But you're right, they should be very clear in terms of saying that they are there in their individual capacity and not as a C4C member, so that you will know why that they are there.
Yeah, I have a question because that's an issue that comes up all the time about neighbor councils, not Brown Act postings.
Is that discrimination or what?
And everything I've heard has said that the city attorney advises them that they should cancel it. So that's what we were told. So it's in conflict with what Ron's saying. So I want to understand, because you said the same thing, we recommend that it's cancel the meeting. So what is it?
Well,
Is it
both
on
the
Brown Act,
city,
but it's to the neighbor council?
both the city attorney and the department, we make recommendations. So we don't say you must cancel your meeting. What we tell you is we recommend that you cancel your meeting. And then again, it's the pros and cons. If you don't cancel your meeting, then you might have a stakeholder who might complain or report this. But no, I think like maybe really early on, before I was even working at the department, I think there were some field staff who went in and like, we're canceling meetings, that kind of thing, and that did not go over well. And that's I feel personally that we're here to support you guys and to make what you guys want to do in your communities happen. And so, we'll always try to provide how you can try to do what you're trying to do, as opposed to saying, no, we're not going to support you with that.
I just wanted to maybe make some clarification. Ron, I tend to agree with you, and I am a lawyer, but I'm not your counsel, and I'm not the Casino Neighborhood Councils Council.
That's two in front.
But Gracie is also right too, and so is the city attorney. So what happens is when you have someone that complains about a micro issue, okay, and they're looking at things in terms of just the tree and not the forest, if you do cancel a meeting, you'll never run afoul of the Brown Act. So you won't have to worry about a remedy, you won't have to worry about a violation. If you move forward and you think that you've complied with the spirit and the intent and everything else, you might not have a Brown Act violation. What people have to understand, this is not black and white. The law is,
Right.
but it gets interpreted. But I think that we have a bunch of people running around in the community who want to nitpick about certain things that they have not seen or they have not vetted themselves, and it creates a lot of consternation. And I think what Lydia says is correct too, in that you get these conflicting pieces of advice all throughout the city and the system, and it's really confusing for the layperson. I personally don't have a problem with it because I can parse through all that. It is frustrating, I will admit, for my council, for our council. But I think what people just need to understand is that it really is not a black and white issue. And so I think we have to, as independent councils, kind of determine our own fate with the guidance of our NEAs and our people from Bonk and whatnot. And that that Dunn and the other people who are trying to help me to understand that we're all adults and that we will be responsible for our own actions, and collectively we want, most people are really trying to do the best they can with the information they have.
That's a very good point, and I think it's also difficult, am I speaking as a president, when you've got a room full, not only your full board, but you've got a room full of stakeholders coming to a meeting, and then you're told you have to cancel. I mean, you have to think, do I want to tell everybody to leave? I mean, it is, you're right, it's not a black and white issue. And I think I guess I'm asking that the department look at this in totality, that when you have functioning councils, in some cases high functioning councils, then consider that, rather than make us feel that we are being punished, for this, this one infraction. And I think that in terms of C4C, I think if this is a partnership, then I think you have the responsibility to work these things through, so this kind of thing does not happen again. And I think if it happened to our council, it's happening other councils. This is not just an isolated incident. I don't take it personally, but I think that's something you need to look into because it's really very serious. Sir, you have your hand up. Would you identify yourself?
Yes. My name's William Kuzman. Ms. Berard, happy anniversary. Missed it by 5 days. Mr. Ziff, thanks for reading the Brown Act laws. That's great. And Mr. Ziff was absolutely right when he says the Brown Act says you can't cancel a meeting. But at the same time, Todd over here explained to us that indeed the way to avoid a Brown Act violation, if a violation did occur with an agenda posting, if it didn't physically get posted, it's probably a good idea to cancel the meeting if the Brown Act violation doesn't occur, and then legal action has to be taken afterwards. Now, I'm not going to get into details because I think it doesn't belong here. This is one of those personal situations that I don't know why it's even here. But I do want to ask you, Gracie, about C4C and those people that, and beyond that group, if there was a qualified stakeholder that did all your trainings and could qualify for such a thing, could they also be appointed to C4C?
So Councils for Councils, there's an application process, and like I said, we are going to try to do another open recruitment this fiscal year for it. So depending on who applies, if you meet the qualifications, then...
So it doesn't have to be a board member per se?
We typically look at board members or former board members because they understand the neighborhood council system, but it's not exclusive.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Barry?
Couldn't you still hold a meeting and not just take an official vote on anything?
The answer is yes. Eric?
Yeah.
what is the penalty for a Brown Act violation? Everybody hears Brown Act and they run for cover like somebody turned the lights on and the cockroaches scattered. I'm telling you, I'm getting sick and tired of being threatened by some asshole who yells Brown Act and then they go running for cover. And usually, the person who files the Brown Act grievance is dead wrong. 99.999% of the time, they are wrong. So what is the penalty? Am I going to go to jail? Is there an electric chair? Am I going to gas? I mean, what is it that I'm afraid of? Oh, that lethal injection?
Yeah, that's good for just,
No coffee, no cookies? What is it? Tell me. I want to know why I'm afraid of a Brown Act violation.
How do you really feel about that?
If I can answer your question.
Thank you.
And I will qualify it up front by saying that I am not a lawyer and this is not legal advice.
Go ahead.
The first thing is I agree with Todd, I agree with Lydia, and I agree with Gracie. If you were to cancel a meeting, you don't solve the problem, you avoid it. And then you could go ahead and post and do everything and correct whatever might have been an error.
So you do the meeting with no votes.
Or you could do the meeting with no votes.
But what is the Brown Act violation?
I'll get to that. Now, let's assume that you did mess up and you did violate some part of the Brown Act. The Brown Act talks about transparency, letting people know what's going on, having everything listed on your agenda, putting the agenda where they can see it, and all this sort of thing. The sort of thing that you and I want to do because that's what we're here for. That's why I volunteer for it, because I want to keep things open. Now, suppose in some fashion, either you really messed up or you think you might have messed up, and there is a complaint. The procedure that's specified in the Act, the way I read it, not legal advice, is that someone who thinks you did something wrong has 90 days to tell you you did something wrong. So you did it wrong tonight, they have the next 3 months to tell you in writing, that you did something wrong. They have to be specific. You voted on giving $1,000 to the Red Cross, you didn't have it on your agenda. Now, once you get that in writing, you have 30 days to fix it. And other than that, I was not able to find any penalties. You don't go to bed without dinner.
Ron, excuse me.
Yes.
There are two penalties. Penalty one, criminal prosecution by the LA County DA or the Attorney General. Penalty two, a lawsuit which will cost the city of Los Angeles a certain amount of money in attorney's fees and penalties. Those are two consequences.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
There's only been one prosecutor in LA County.
We've heard from the attorney, those.
Ron, actually, it's first civil penalties, then it's criminal. And just for the record, I wanted to let Jill know that our council, Encino, has beaten in the last calendar year 2 DA investigations. I think we're very proud of that. Because to get to the criminal level, you have to have the specific intent, okay? And so the way that the DA's office would have to prove that through their public integrity division would be to show that you are a serial violator, that the Open Meetings Law, which is the Brown Act, you wanted to hold your meetings in secret, or you wanted to shovel money to, specific organizations without letting the public know that this is what we're going to be doing. So it has to be significant and substantial. And frankly, it's really kind of criminal that they're scaring people. But I think your analysis is correct, Ron. And the way we do get our written notice is through the city attorney. So we do get that written notice, and it typically is before the 90 days. So all that's moot. And when you do respond, you can back off the action, you can take no official action. There are many ways to remedy it. And I think also Jill is absolutely correct. We have high-functioning neighborhood councils, and I think what happens is the city attorney has sometimes done lumps them all in one big group. And I think it's important to discern really poor operators from the real good ones. It doesn't mean that you shut them down, it just means you train them better. You have to distinguish between the negligent operators and the intentional operators, and I think that's the answer.
That's the answer.
There is no lethal injection, and I don't know.
And that's the answer. If you made a technical error and somebody points it out to you, you can take another vote. You can repost. There's lots of remedies, and it's not a capital offense. It can be fixed.
Okay, thank you all very much. I think this was a healthy discussion because it's happening everywhere, and I think, Eric, you're right. We have to be careful and we have to look out for the cockroaches. Howard, did you have your hand up?
Well, I mean, this is a subject aside and related to funding. Now, as you know, the city council in its infinite wisdom and benevolence has granted us an additional $5,000.
Okay, so you're not discussing what you're on to another.
That's on
Okay.
another topic.
Okay.
That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, and the question being, as of July 1st, neighborhood councils were required to submit their strategic plan and the budget, which at that time was known as the $37,000. So now, as a result of the increase of $5,000, we're, I would assume, required to go back to our boards to have the new budget approved and adopted by the board, and then in turn to submit it to Dunn. So shall we be submitting it through the website again, or how will that be handled?
So we're gonna provide you some instructions with that. You know, a lot of neighbor councils haven't actually submitted their budgets yet, so they still will have time to make the adjustments. So you'll have time to do that, and it's gonna take us time to make those transfers anyway, because we just received the instructions to start making those transfers.
And then one more
yeah,
practical question. As in our case, we've zeroed out the account for last year. We've spent everything. In fact, we're taking 66 cents out of the new budget in order to cover the last check. So the timing was such. But the question being, come Monday night, we have a board meeting, and we will be, of course, purchasing refreshments for that board meeting, and we have no money.
Yeah, and again.
And I don't want to overdraw the account.
Right, no,
for
please do
service
not
fee.
overdraw the account. So my recommendation is, my apologies that this has happened. I told you the situation why that is, and that will be one of the things that I take up with the controller's office about not holding these funds in this manner. But because your board reimbursements, I mean, I would just say your board member would have to take out of pocket. And just know if it's an approved, so if you guys have approved this budget item, you don't have to go back, the board member doesn't have to wait for you to approve that board reimbursement because of the situation. So as soon as you get the money in, you can reimburse that board member.
Well,
You heard that last one?
No, it's a little problematic.
Why is that problematic?
Why? Because we didn't approve the expenses yet for the year, and one of them is the refreshment.
So if this is typical in terms of you're assuming you're going to yeah, if you're doing it every month, this is part of your thing, and you're going to approve it on Monday night, then that's fine. Yeah, it's in the budget. Right.
But again, it's going to have to be a board member out of pocket.
There's no way, even if they release the funds tomorrow, it would still take us a few days to transfer it into your accounts.
Right.
So,
$5,000. So you mentioned there would be fronted the 3 months each quarter monies.
9250, she said.
Right.
Right, so that's my question, the math.
What's the extra 1250?
So, will it be the 42,000, 25% of 42,000?
So once, we don't have those funds in yet, so, once that's in there, then likely in that second quarter, we'll just add it into that quarter.
The first quarter and the second
Right.
quarter, all right there.
Right.
And that just has to happen through that process, it's not an FSR or anything like that, right? That
No,
we're waiting for.
that money has been transferred over to our Fund 100 account, and then what happens is we have to do individual transfers into your individual neighbor council accounts. Fund 100 is a basic neighbor council fund, and then neighbor councils individually have accounts, and that's just 96 individual accounts.
Who's back in the corner? Is that Tony?
Tony.
I think it's
I
Tony.
don't have my
I
glasses.
just, the quickie thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but actually seeing what happened this year, and maybe it'll happen again next year, it may not be so good to spend all our money, because as I understand it, since this is an ongoing account, if our neighborhood council didn't spend $900, then $900 is subtracted from 37 when you put the money in. But guess what? You've got $900 to spend as soon as the department frees your purchase card and your check. So actually not spending all of your money is a cushion for being able to operate in week 1 of the new fiscal year. Just a thought.
So like you said, we don't freeze. If that money's in your accounts, use it.
Good point, Tony.
But some people went down they spent almost all of the money. So some,
Okay, you had mentioned before about using QuickBooks, correct?
Yes.
Now, be really, really careful with that, and it's extremely